So it was not the best day at the office for C.J. Stroud. Now, understandably, no Nico Collins and now no Stephon Diggs here in this game. But I think the issues with what happened here in the 21-13 loss against the Jets goes even deeper than just not having those receivers available. So Stroud in this game only completed 11 passes for 11 of his 30 attempts for 191 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions either, a 48.5 PFF grade. But when you dig into it a little bit deeper, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 4 big-time throws in this game, and 1 turnover-worthy play. So that means of the 11 completions that he had, 4 of them were big-time throws. Well, I guess that's not true. It doesn't necessarily have to be 11 because sometimes a big-time throw could be an incompletion. But to have 4 big-time throws, given the amount of times that he was thrown and honestly the amount of times that he was under pressure, I thought was really telling of how he can make the best of bad situations. But Seth, is he the one that's putting the team in the bad situations? Is it out of his control? Is it something that can change? What do we think here? Because the Texans are a team that not only has division title hopes, but deep playoff run hopes, maybe even a Super Bowl. And it did not look pretty against the Jets on Thursday, a team that a lot of people thought that maybe they should have beaten.
Yeah, I think so there's like a bunch of issues here with this team. And it is generally a good Jets defense. They haven't played particularly amazing this season, but historically it's been a good defense.
Yeah,
they got a lot of talent. And then when you take away Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell becomes your number 1 receiver, which is probably not a good receiver, but not a wide receiver 1.
Right.
Like you're obviously going to have issues that way. I just think I like the strat on that on Thursday night, and I was like, oh, he doesn't trust anything, because there's stuff available I think for him to throw. I thought Bobby Slowick still did a pretty good job, to be honest. But he doesn't really trust anything early in the play. And then you have an issue with this Houston Texans offensive line. If you don't trust something early in the play that's open, it's over for you.
Right.
There's no getting to your second read when your guards are getting massacred. And, pressure is a bucket. Like the term under pressure, the term getting a pressure, being pressured. It's a bucket that is a lot of different types of pressure, let's call it. Mm-hmm. There's a hurry. There's a pressure that's not a hurry. There's a pressure that is a hurry. And the pressure that is a hit that's not a hit, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
These pressures that were happening by the Jets defense, especially on the interior, those were pressures with a hurry and a hit. Like, they were in his face right away. Those were clean wins by the defensive line, especially Quinnen Williams, who had a great game. So, like, you got to be able to throw very early to your first read, which is something that this offense has tended to be able to do. Now, you're going to get Nico Collins back this week in a huge game against the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football. On NBC.
On NBC, yes, thank you. Yeah, good plug.
So, that becomes such an important factor. Like, if there's anyone he trusts, it's Nico Collins.
Right.
So, like, if we can get that factor back and we don't have to go to our second and third reads and checkdowns, like, we're going to be able to move the ball a lot better than we did against the Jets.
Stroud's average time to throw this season, 3.01. It's 11th highest in the NFL. So above 3 seconds, obviously that's a higher mark. And I think that when I was watching the game against the Jets, and then when I went back and I watched the all-22 of it, something that CJ is very comfortable with, that I've really grown to love about his game, certainly since that very last game against Georgia he played at Ohio State, and then that first year that he played, he will step up in the pocket, right? There's a lot of times when I'm evaluating quarterbacks and I'm scouting quarterbacks, and a lot of these, not to sound too boomer about it, but like a lot of these younger quarterbacks don't want to step up in the pocket. They play, 7-on-7 flag football. They play in just these opening events where there's no contact and there's no real offensive line play or anything like that. And they just get very used to bailing deeper in the pocket and rolling left or right. And that is just what they do. Now, in a real game against real competition, certainly at the NFL level, that gets you in big trouble. And it's a tendency that you need to break, especially when defenses know that you are not somebody who's going to step up in the middle of the pocket. They will adjust how they rush you. They will sell out for those outside shoulders. They will not be afraid that you're going to step up in the pocket if they overcommit to the speed rushes on both sides of the trenches. So, like, when you don't have the ability to step up in the pocket under pressure, it is such a handcuff to what you can do. You know, with offensive line scheme, with what you were doing with your receivers, because if you cannot step up in the middle of a pocket and extend the play even half of a second because you stepped up in the middle, well, then you're somebody who's going to bail left or bail right. All of a sudden, if the situation presents itself where you don't feel comfortable stepping up and you got to bail out to the right, well, what if none of the concepts were to the right? You know, then all of a sudden you're kind of screwing yourself over. You got more defenders coming this way. They're crashing in on you, and you got one wide receiver that you can look at on that side of the field. So it's just paramount that you have the ability to step up in the pocket. C.J. Stroud does it. He does that now pretty well. Now, the issue is the interior offensive line. Is bad.
It's all right in front of us.
It's bad, and specifically this past game where Kenyon Green, who is not playing well this season, he's one of the lowest graded guards that we have throughout the season. Now, he goes out with injury. Kendrick Green comes in, but he doesn't really play that much better. So with Stroud, I saw opportunities where his body language tells you he wants to step up. And the interior offensive line is giving up so many of those critical pressures that you were talking about where he doesn't even have the ability to do that. So this is going to be a major issue for this team until they can fix it. And it's kind of sounded like an obvious there. Like, it's going to be an issue that's going to hold the team back until they can fix this little thing. And a lot of things get better once they do that. That's probably a better way to phrase what I was trying to say there. Because Stroud's got the mental ability to do it. He's got the courage to do it. He'll step up in the pocket. He's not afraid to do so. But to me, you were watching him bail out of the pocket to the left and right a lot more. And he's graded fine when that's happened. It's not like he's a bad quarterback when that happens. But I was specifically watching passes where the zip on his passes was like dying more than I was used to seeing with C.J. Stroud. And it's because he's used to being able to step into throws. Because he wants to, because he knows that it's important, because he knows he can. And you just didn't see him have that opportunity to step in as many throws against the New York Jets. And I'm worried if that's going to be a constant throughout the second half of this season, even with Nico Collins back, it might not be the potent Texans offense that they want it to be to make that deep playoff run.
I think what you'll see more of with Nico Collins back is these like quick throws over the middle of the field. If you guys listening want to go back and watch the first touchdown against the Bears, week 2 on Sunday Night Football on NBC.
On NBC. Good plug. Good plug.
You can see that like very quick hitting, get to the end of your drop back. Nico Collins is running like an 8-yard in-breaking slant, glance, speed dig, whatever you want to call it. The linebacker jumps the running back who is running into the flat. He throws it there. They get catch and a lot of yak, and like you haven't seen that without Nico Collins, and that's such a big part of that offense. So like getting that helps, and that helps pressure, right? If you can get the ball out quickly, you can deal with pressure in that way. So I'm excited to see this offense. I've always loved this offense. I'm excited to see it healthy again with Nico Collins, and I think that I last year before Tank Dell got injured, like we were looking at like a very potent 1-2 combination with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. So yes, Stephon Diggs, an important player there, but you're kind of okay with those two players as your 1 and 2.
As long as you get Nico back.
Yeah, that's important.
This whole thing. But even with that being the case, they've got to be better up front. Like they just
the main thing is the amount. So like yes, like when a guy gets pressured, it's going to be bad. When a guy gets quick pressure, it's going to be even worse than that. But if you can get the ball off quickly, you go from dealing with 14 pressures in a game to 7 pressures in a game. So yes, those 7 pressures are going to be bad because it's tough to deal with pressure. But going from 14 to 7 is cutting in half. Right. Just the amount of time, the volume of times, gives you a chance to succeed a lot better.
Yeah. So Stroud, again, I think to sort of encapsulate the question that we had entering this segment of the show, I'm not worried about Stroud, especially with Nico Collins coming back. I'm not worried about CJ Stroud, but I am worried about his time to throw being higher and the fact that the interior offensive line is giving up pressures the way that they are. That is something that when you play the better teams, you might be able to still get into the playoffs, win the division, all of that. But when you talk about the playoffs starting, this team has enough talent to win a couple of games in the playoffs. They really do. But not if the interior offensive line is not going to get better this season. We will see if it does. I don't trade deadline and everything like that, but I mean, like, nobody's trading for good offensive linemen. I mean, nobody's getting nobody's getting rid of their good offensive linemen. So it's basically the guys that they have on the team, they've got to work with. They've got to play better. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can come one today.